Hi, this is Chatterboxing. I'm Sean, and I want to talk in this video about the situation with Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. I mean, it's not really much of a situation at the moment, but it's quite an interesting topic, in my opinion. There's a few things we can touch on here. Dillian Whyte's come out and basically challenged Tyson Fury, saying, "Are you gonna, in so many words, are you gonna fight me, or are you gonna duck like Wilder?" Tyson Fury, obviously, as we know, has a contract to fight Deontay Wilder, and then after that, as he stated in his response, he's going to be wanting to make the unification with Anthony Joshua. So Dillian Whyte's going to have to wait more time for his shot. Dillian Whyte's obviously quite pissed off about the fact that he hasn't had the WBC title shot. Rightly so. He thinks that Fury has basically nicked his mandatory, jumped the queue, which, to be fair, he's got a point. Tyson Fury was obviously a very big name. He was a former champion, unified champion, beat Vladimir Klitschko, ended that reign. Big name, and obviously had much bigger accomplishments than Dillian Whyte. So he managed to jump the queue based on that. I mean, it isn't really fair, but that's just the way boxing works. I mean, that the market generally dictates what fights are made. Now, Tyson Fury didn't really do anything other than just sort of be himself to deserve that shot ahead of Dillian Whyte. He fought against two absolute nobodies, whereas Dillian Whyte fought consistently top 10 WBC fighters, paying a load of sanctioning fees, winning the belts and different interim titles, etc., that he'd been doing for a very long time. Invested money, invested time, invested a lot of energy in getting into that position, and then he feels that Tyson Fury just come in, jump the queue without really putting the work in. And yeah, to be honest, you can't really disagree with him. Now, you can say that Tyson Fury, what he done in the past by beating Klitschko, the way he did it, and the name and the reputation he built up, allowed him to do that. And obviously people can decide whether they think that's fair enough or not. But I can definitely see why Dillian Whyte feels a bit hard done by. Deontay Wilder says he's going to enforce the rematch clause. Tyson Fury says he's going to honour the rematch clause. So, it looks like if we're going to take that at face value, then that is what it is, and that fight will happen next. And then obviously everyone will be clamouring for the Joshua fight. The only thing, the kind of ray of hope, you could say, for Dillian Whyte and for a lot of people who don't want to see the Wilder Fury rematch, is that it could possibly, it could happen that there just isn't the money, the numbers don't add up to make that fight. Deontay Wilder is going to want decent money, I imagine, to take that fight, as is Tyson Fury. The last fight they had did generate good money, did good numbers, but they'd obviously spent a lot of money on the promotion. Both fighters had been, losing money going into that. They've been paid. I'm not sure exactly what they've been paid, but clearly that Fury's fights and Wilder's fights prior to that, the last couple they've made a loss. Especially Wilder's, if he was on pay-per-view for that Ortiz one, and obviously the Brazil one, where they basically just had to match what DAZN, or at least come close to what DAZN were doing. So in those last few fights, they've grown accustomed to making a lot of money. So they're not going to want to suddenly go into this for fuck all money. Now, they're going to look at the numbers and think, what money really is this fight going to generate? There's not going to be a big live gate. I mean, the live gate last time, I don't know what the percentage was, but loads of those people came over from the UK. It's difficult to tell because obviously we generally make a lot more noise and are more boisterous, and I don't know if it was more than half the people there, but there was a significant number of fans who travelled over from the UK to buy those expensive tickets. You'd think that would be much less so on this occasion, based on the fact that it's just no one really is that interested in seeing it, as far as we're concerned. In Britain, in most places, it's been won twice. The focus now is on other fights. So I can't imagine that many people coming over and spending a load of money on tickets there. I mean, that's not even including this whole COVID-19 situation. We don't know how that's going to affect live gate. Obviously we do know in the short term, but we don't know how long it's going to be before that potentially gets back to normal. In terms of fans from America, I mean, how many of them are going to go to Las Vegas and pay loads of money to watch that fight again? I don't think very many, to be honest. So I don't think they're going to make much money there. How could you sell that really as a pay-per-view? I mean, especially the prices they got in America. I mean, the only people really that I've seen who are particularly wanting to watch this again are like some real hardcore Deontay Wilder fans. And how many of them are there really who are like going to pay for a pay-per-view to make it worth the while? Again, few. I don't think very many. So I don't really see like what money it's going to generate in America. The fight wouldn't happen in the UK. First of all, because Bob Arum and ESPN and all that, they're quite keen on doing everything in America as opposed to Britain. I don't think Deontay Wilder would be up for doing that anyway. So that's not really a realistic option. And again, you've got the problem of the crowds. Yeah, you would sell like big tickets in the UK, but they wouldn't be as expensive as they were in Vegas, first of all. And you've got the situation, as obviously, with this pandemic. So, most of the money would come, excuse me, from the live game. I mean, you would do decent pay-per-view in the UK, I reckon. Just the fact that it's like 20 quid or 25 quid or whatever they charge. You could do decent numbers like that, but I just don't think that's a realistic option. So you've got the situation where some third party could come in and pay for it. So be it Saudi Arabia, Qatar, somewhere in the Middle East, possibly China, someone who just put down enough money to stage the fight. Now that potentially could happen, but if that doesn't happen, then I think they're going to have a problem with the numbers. I just don't think they're going to come to an agreement, because if you're Deontay Wilder, you've made like the last few fights, you've started to earn some pretty good money. You've just lost in bad fashion. You're going into it like not very confident, potentially. Well, you're definitely fighting for your career. You're potentially going to end your career. You're going to want some good money for it. Otherwise, it's just not really worth it. So that's a potential way in which this thing couldn't happen. Also, the injury. Now, Dillian Whyte mentioned that there's an injury with not he mentioned, but he referred to. Obviously, it's well known. So if that's the case, that's quite a good excuse, or a sort of get out of jail free kind of way for Deontay Wilder to, not have the third fight straight away and save some face, because people really don't want to see it anyway. So if it was like, oh, I've got this injury, I can't do it, everyone would be like, okay, mate, perfect, don't worry about it, do it later. So that is a potential thing, but the problem with that is, again, this situation we have now, we don't know when there's going to be a live fight, certainly not a big level one, like a top level one. So by the time everything gets back to normal, if it gets back to normal, it's not going to be, well, potentially it's not going to be any time soon. And Deontay Wilder's injury by that point could become irrelevant in that respect. So really, I think it comes down to the money of whether that thing happens. In terms of Dillian Whyte feeling hard done by, I think that, I sympathise with him with the WBC. I think whether you like or dislike him, I definitely think that he deserves a shot with the WBC. The problem that he has, I think he is losing a lot of goodwill from generally, like the vibe I get from a lot of boxing fans. Now, the thing is, the Fury Wilder fight is contractually obliged, so that's just not really the issue. The point is the Fury Joshua, or even Wilder. If Wilder beats Fury, then that fight is what people want to see. And I think people are not really interested in Dillian Whyte fighting instead of it. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't actually mind seeing that fight first. But generally speaking, people aren't really wanting to listen to him. So, no, I deserve my shot, everyone's duck. I think by this point, I think everybody is just like, not everybody, but I think there's an increasing amount of people who are just getting a bit fed up with him banging on about it. Now, the reason I think that, like the WBC, as I said, I sympathise with how that's been going on. The situation with Pulev and Ortiz, I don't blame him for either of them. I'll get to them in a minute. But the thing with Anthony Joshua turning down that opportunity, I think, is the real. That's the one with the sort of deal breaker. So that's the one that just sort of takes the sympathy away for most people. I mean, he got an opportunity, a voluntary shot to fight for 3 world titles in his hometown, and he turned it down. And he turned it down because he didn't like the money when the money was, I mean, it seemed pretty high to me. He didn't like the terms of the rematch clause. But you're basically getting a voluntary shot for 3 belts against someone who's much bigger than you, who's a much bigger name than you. And okay, you've helped each other out to a certain extent. You've both contributed to it, but really, a lot of your prominence within British boxing name, you got to thank Anthony Joshua for that as well. And this is a bloke who's already knocked you out. So if you're turning down that opportunity, a lot of people looking at thinking, well, I do have sympathy with the WBC, but this idea that he's never, when someone going to give him a shot, he got given an opportunity and he turned it down, a very good opportunity. So I think that is what's lost him a lot of goodwill in terms of making this fight happen next. Now, in terms of Pulev and Ortiz, I think that okay, let's start at Pulev. Like people saying, he sort of ducked that and he could have done that. Well, I don't agree with that at all, because Pulev was going to get 75% of the purse for a fight. He wasn't a mandatory. He wasn't a mandatory for. He wasn't a champion against a contender. This is 2 contenders. One of them was going to be given 75%, the other one 25%. Now that is just a very bad deal financially. It just doesn't make sense. Also, it would have been in Bulgaria. So you're asking him to basically go and fight in Bulgaria for less money than he could for fighting in his own hometown and do a pay-per-view fight. And it's not like he was some nobody who really needed a break. He'd already built up quite a following, quite a reputation. So what was being asked of him there was pretty unreasonable. So I don't blame him for that at all. Then you've got the situation with Luis Ortiz. Again, I don't blame him for that. He'd been in the WBC rankings for a very long time, been the #1 contender, and he was now being asked to fight against some other one who's already had a voluntary title shot to become second mandatory, instead of fighting Derek Chisora in the UK in a much more lucrative fight. So again, you're looking at it thinking, you want me to go and fight this guy for less money to if anything, go backwards, to become second mandatory. Why do I want to be second mandatory for? You put Dominic Breazeale in front of me for no reason, and now I've got it just doesn't make any sense. So he would have, don't get me wrong, I would have preferred to have seen both Ortiz and Pulev fights than the Chisora rematch, just because I hadn't seen them before as a fan. But I don't blame him for taking a more lucrative option where he's going to make a load more money. It's prize fighting. That's what it is. So that you can't blame him for that. But the Joshua thing, I think, that's the one that's really done him, and he can't really expect people to support him getting in the way of the fight everybody wants to see. Everybody wants to see Joshua against Fury. That just is what it is. So yeah, he's there's not really much you can do about that. In terms of Fury against Dillian Whyte, I think it's a great matchup. I love the clash of styles. I love the clash of personalities. I like the clash of egos. I just like it. I just like the matchup a lot. I think it's a very interesting one. Both of them are very aggressive in the press conferences and the build-up. They almost try to bully their opponents. Now, Tyson Fury's always just sort of mugging everyone off, taking the piss out of them. A bit kind of like Muhammad Ali style, but he does get quite aggressive as well. Dillian Whyte's more just like literally just trying to intimidate, trying to offer you out. Let's have a fucking fight here and now. I'm going to come round to your house. All this kind of really tries to put it on them. So that would be an interesting dynamic to the build-up. It would be it'd be fascinating to see how it went down. Because if Tyson Fury got how he got with Vladimir Klitschko and Deontay Wilder, I can imagine Dillian Whyte literally just kicking off there and then, just going, let's fucking have it, mate. And Tyson Fury, he wouldn't back down either. So it would be very volatile. And if Dillian Whyte came into it trying to basically just be like the bully and trying to offer it all this sort of, again, Tyson Fury's not going to back down. So it's got all the potential for a real, just a very confrontational and pretty naughty, and it would be an interesting one to watch. And that would also obviously have an effect on the fight, because Tyson Fury likes to sort of get inside people's heads more so than Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's just a bit more, he just loses it and just gets aggressive. Whereas I think there's more of a method to the madness of Tyson Fury. But going into that fight, he knows full well that he's not going to be able to really intimidate Dillian Whyte. He knows that he's got a very, very strong mindset, and whether you like him or don't like him, he's turning up to have it. He's turning up real will to win, and it's a tough night's work for anyone. So that would be a very interesting clash of wills as well, and I would love to see it. Now, in terms of the actual fight, it's an interesting one as well, because Dillian Whyte is quite underrated in my opinion. He's skillful, he's got long reach. So Tyson Fury is used to having a reach advantage over. I think he probably does have a slight reach, but not much. Dillian Whyte is obviously a good body puncher. You could see him trying to pick off the body from range. The big disadvantage he would have over Tyson Fury, two big disadvantages I think. First of all, stamina. Secondly, balance. Now he moves about, and he gets off back, he'll like swing big punches, and he's got a lot of body weight puts into it, and he'll find himself off balance quite a lot. So Tyson Fury could potentially keep him off balance, pick him off quite well, and grind him down. I think that would be the best approach for him. Dillian Whyte would need to try and pace himself. He'd need to be aggressive. He'd need to make it. He's not going to outbox Tyson Fury, but he doesn't need to just sort of go all out and just try and throw hell for leather, because Tyson Fury, first of all, he's very resilient. Second, he's very tough. Third, he's hard to hit, and he moves well. So you're going to expend quite a lot of energy trying to take him out, which, yeah, I don't know if he's really going to be able to sort of like cover that ground well enough to do it effectively. But he's a very powerful puncher, Dillian Whyte. And Tyson Fury, he has looked like he's susceptible to the left hook a few times. So who knows? I mean, it'd definitely be a very interesting fight. If they did make that before Anthony Joshua, then I certainly, for one, wouldn't complain. But I just can't really see it happening. I don't really see Tyson Fury. So as much as I like Tyson Fury, as much as I'm a fan of him, he doesn't seem to be someone, at least he hasn't shown it so far, who's wanting to literally just fight against everyone, just sort of put that kind of work in, like the sort of Anthony Joshua style, Vladimir Klitschko style. He seems to be someone who just likes the big night, the big challenges, and he'll take them. But I don't really see him, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe he sort of changed his way of thinking, but he doesn't strike me as someone who thinks, yeah, I want to fight Dillian Whyte now, then I'm going to fight Anthony Joshua, then Usyk, and that, do you know what I mean? I'd be surprised. So unless it gets mandated by the WBC before, and you know, we haven't really seen much evidence that they're going to want to, you know, do much to help Dillian Whyte get his shot, then I can't really see it happening. So yeah, Dillian Whyte really, although he has been fucked over by the WBC, I just think that turning down that chance to fight Anthony Joshua was a bad decision. And I think that by doing that, he doesn't really have that much of a leg to stand on in terms of, you know, everyone who's got to like accommodate him now and give him his opportunity. You know, if the WBC don't actually do it themselves, then, you know, it's not going to happen. So yeah. Yeah, so let me know what you lot think about this. Probably a few things I wanted to talk about that I missed out. But yeah, thank you very much for watching.